Hey there, Lincoln here from BoAcademy.org. Today I want to talk to you about the economics of being a real estate landlord in New York City and what it takes to actually keep a house running and keep your tenants happy, both emotionally and financially. So if you have ever thought about buying real estate or been afraid of the stress of owning real estate and being a landlord, I'm going to cover what you need to know about the demands of a landlord life and how you as well can be a landlord and succeed at it and also make money in the process and build wealth for the long term. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed this video, do me a big favor and like the video below and subscribe to the channel. It's very important for this channel to continue to grow, to keep me motivated to continue to make you videos that help you also build wealth. If you are someone who wants to build wealth, real estate is one of the best ways to do so. Of course, you can also invest in stocks, and I've covered that at length on this channel, but today is just real estate. So I own a property, a duplex in New York City, and I bought that for some $600,000, and I got great interest rate on it in 2021 for less than 3%. So my mortgage is actually pretty low and relatively low for New York City, where for one bedroom, I've paid $3,200, $3,500. Some people pay $5,000 a month just for a 1 or 2 bedroom in New York City. I've owned a whole house, a duplex, 2 units, for less than that every month in mortgage. That's the first benefit, which is that you can find yourself a property that costs less to mortgage than it does to rent in your city, especially if you live in San Francisco or Los Angeles or New York City, where rent is insane. So I'm very fortunate to have bought a house at that price at the time that I did. And now I have 2 tenants living there, and they both pay me on time. One, of course, is a government tenant, so the government pays me on time every month. And the other tenant has a high income and they pay me on time, sometimes very early, which is much appreciated. And in turn, I am not a headache for my tenants. That's how I keep the peace. If I have good tenants who treat me well, I'm going to treat them well too. And of course, it starts with me. I'm going to make sure I'm treating my tenants well so that they are inclined to treat me well and aren't trying to get one over me, because I'm not trying to get one over them. So it's mutual respect. That's how you keep the peace. Now, when it comes to the cost of things going wrong, I know everyone always say, "Oh, I don't want to have to be a plumber, so I don't want to own real estate." But I make over $60,000 a year in revenues from my real estate, and I've never had to touch a toilet. If anything ever goes wrong, I just call up a maintenance person, a plumber, an electrician, a groundskeeper, and they handle all of that for me at a market rate. So that's where it starts. You have to understand that you're going to need a team. And that team includes you. Your part of being a team is that you're saving money so that when things go wrong, you can pay the other parts of your team to take care of it. So every month, when I get my income from my rental income for both my tenants, I save all of it, 100%. None of the cash comes to me personally. It goes into my bank account and I don't touch it, because I know that something's going to go wrong. Something will go wrong. It's real estate. It's a depreciating asset, because as soon as you put in the new pipes, it starts to degrade because water's going to run through it and cause degradation. So I want to make sure that when something goes wrong, I don't have to stress out about not having enough money or having to go through my own bank account and taking out of my own savings and having to go pay one of my team members, my plumber, my electrician, to then fix that for me, or not being able to fix it. Then my tenant's upset and now they are going to threaten to not pay my rent. So I want to minimize stress, and the way I minimize stress is by just not touching any of the income I get from my real estate. I just save it for a rainy day, when the roof caves in, whatever the case is, a pipe bursts, a toilet breaks, there's an electrical issue, whatever the case is, I don't want to have to stress about it. So I just save all my money there. And when something goes wrong, my tenant tells me, they text me, or they send me a message through the system I've set up to communicate with them in a formal manner. And I call the respective party, a plumber, electrician, whoever, to go take a look at it and tell me what they think and give me a quote. And then if the quote is out of the ballpark, if they are just being ridiculous, I call someone else to go take a look and give me a quote. And if that is still not in a place that I would like, I call a third person to go take a look, give me a price, and then I choose whichever one of them is the most reasonable one. And of course, ideally, I can find someone who I trust and over the long term, just go back to them. So from the very beginning, when I started renovating my property, I found an electrician who was very nice, a local electrician running a family business that's been running for a long time. They always come whenever something's wrong and they give me a reasonable price. And so whenever anything goes wrong for me, I just call them up and they're always there for me. That's the ideal case, that you have someone who is a permanent member of your team that you can trust and go to whenever anything goes wrong. And so I have an electrician called Paul, and I call Paul when anything goes wrong. When I want to do a renovation, I call him up and he does that part for me. So ideally, you find someone like that for your plumbing, for your groundskeeping, for your flooring, whatever the case is, whatever the category is. You want to find someone who you can trust and rely on for any time you need them. So that's how I take care of any maintenance issues. I just call someone who's an expert. I don't know how to do electric work. My dad does. My dad can do everything, but he's here in Philly, so I can't call on him to come travel to New York City every time. So I just call an expert in the local area and they handle it for me. I never touch any toilets. I don't do anything that is, I'm not a DIY person. I'm a software engineer. I like software, not hardware. I don't want to touch anything and do any manual labor. So I just pay for it. And ideally, things aren't going wrong often. So you want to make sure you're buying a house that's not completely broken down or super old and things are going to break every single day. My house, there's rarely any issues. Of course, when there are issues, they can be bigger because it's an older house. But I save for that so that when it does come up, I don't have to then stress about having to find $1,000 out of nowhere or $5,000 or $9,000. And in those cases where there's a big capital expenditure that might come up, when that comes up and they tell me, hey, there's a pipe that needs to be replaced, and they're like, oh, it's going to cost you $5,000. I'm just like, hey, let's just patch it for now so I can save up if I need to save up. And then I will do the full repair later on when I have the money, when I have the funds. As long as we patch it up in a safe way and it passes bar, we're good. And I need a few months to go save, and then we can do the full thing. Same for the roof. If the roof has a leaking area, I'm just gonna patch it up in a way that passes bar. I'm not doing anything illegal. Don't do illegal things because it's gonna catch up to you. So just patch it up and then save up that $10,000 over the next year or two, and then go do a full roof replacement if you have to. If there are many spots on the roof that are just broken down and the roof is old. So that's when my projects are coming up in the future. I'm saving for it now, and I will eventually have to replace my roof. So I know that's coming, and so I'm planning for that. So with that said, I am saving at least $1,000 a month in profit, which is about $500 per door. That's a lot of money. So this is a great investment that I've made here. Usually you might get $100 a month or even less a month if you're lucky to get anything at all, if you're not losing money. So to make $500 per door on one investment is great. So if you're patient and you take your time, you look in the right places and you get the right people on your team, real estate agents, lawyers, and do the right appraisals, you can get a good deal that actually makes you cash flow. But the thing is, you don't want to use that cash flow, because I know everyone online is telling you, oh, it's passive income, you can make lots of money in real estate. It's not true. You don't make lots of money in real estate unless you get a good deal. And also, with that money that you make, you still don't want to spend it because things will come up as we cover in this video. And if you change your mindset on passive income, which should be to build wealth over the long term, you save that money and you protect yourself from the downside, because you don't want to have the case where something goes wrong and you don't have any money to deal with it. Or if something doesn't go wrong, your property actually does very well, and the government comes and says, hey, your property is worth more now. We're going to assess taxes on you. We're going to charge you more in taxes. So you owe us $1,000 now. You owe us $5,000. If they come to you and you don't have that money, you're in trouble. So you want to minimize the chances of not having the money that you need to do what you need to do when something happens. And if you do that, then investing in real estate is super relaxed. I don't stress out about my property too much. Only times I have to deal with it is when there's a lease renewal coming up and I have to do the paperwork and communication with my tenant and their people and all that stuff. And then, of course, filing taxes and getting a good tax accountant to make sure I'm doing my depreciations correctly on the renovations that I've made, getting the most benefit from those renovations. So those things, those clerical things, you have to do them, but they're only once in a while. And if you have the right people in place, it makes it much easier to achieve what you need to and then move on with your life. So again, the goal is to put in systems and the right people to carry out those systems for you. And also, most importantly, to save all the money you make and not use it to go buy something fancy or spend it at the club or on fancy restaurant dates. Your goal should be to save all the money you make and then use that money to improve the property, fix the property, and then whatever's left over, save it to go buy your next property. That's the goal. So if you do that, real estate investing is pretty straightforward and minimal stress. Of course, things can go wrong. That are out of your control. You could find someone who seems to be a good tenant, and then it turns out, oh, they're actually a nightmare tenant, and you're in trouble now. So you have to evict them, or you have to do something to minimize the risk of them destroying your property or squatting or whatever the case is. So things can go wrong. I'm not trying to say they can't go wrong, but if you take the right steps, you can minimize the risk of things going wrong. And then also build wealth over the long term, which is always the goal here on this channel, long-term investing. If you're someone who doesn't want to save all your money that you make, you should at least save 20% for your expenses that are going to come up every month, and maybe even 30% just to be safe. And then if you have anything left over from there, go ahead and spend it, give yourself a little treat. That's fine if that's what you need to do. But for me, I like to just save it all and not have to worry about not having money in the future. Okay, so now let's talk about the finances of my property. I have 2 units in this one duplex. One of them brings in half the mortgage, the other one brings in the entire mortgage. And so I pretty much have a gross profit of about 60%, which is great, every month. And with that income, I have to then also cover the mortgage and cover utilities like water and gas. The tenants pay for their own electricity. So if there is a big family on my units and they use lots of electricity, I don't want to be on the hook for that. And if there's a tenant who doesn't use a lot of electricity, then great. They don't have to spend too much on their electricity bill. So I don't have to charge them a fixed rate. So I just cover water and gas. And there's not too much use of gas. So unless it's the winter where gas will go up, but that's all right. I budget for that. I plan for that. So that comes out to about $400 a month in utilities. And then I have a renovation loan, which is another $400 per month, $450 per month. And that's pretty much my entire expenses. And then on top of that, I save at least 20% of any profits that I make so that I can have a rainy day fund. Of course, as I said earlier, I actually save all of it, but if I was not to save all of it, it would be at least 20%. Those are my expenses. And then there's taxes and any potential fees that the government might send my way if my tenants don't behave correctly, such as not recycling correctly or putting the trash out correctly. And so there's miscellaneous expenses that might come up, so you have to save for that too, so another 10%. That's pretty much it. So then when anything goes wrong, I already have a savings fund, and I just call up someone and have them fix it. So if the toilet's broken, maybe $100 to fix that. If the pipe is broken, maybe $500, $900 to fix that. If the roof is broken, maybe $1,000 to fix that. If it's not too bad, if it's the entire roof needs to be replaced, then that's maybe $10,000, which is a big amount of money. And that requires pretty much my entire savings account. So I have to save for that and have that plan in place so that when something big does come up, I have enough money to deal with it. And if I don't, I take the right steps to remedy the situation in the moment and then come back to it to fix it completely in the future once I do have money. And if I'm forced to make that fix, if I have to make a big fix at any given moment, I want to keep my credit score up so that I'm able to get a personal loan to then go and fix that. And then of course, pay that personal loan off as soon as possible with any income that I have that comes in. That's how I approach my expenses. Most months, nothing happens. Maybe 1, 2, or 3 months out of the year, something comes up. It's usually small. I fix it and I move on with my life. That's pretty much it. And with taxes, I pay a professional. They help me. I try to keep the same accountant every year so that they can keep that record and give me the most returns on depreciation, on any renovations I do, and they understand my property from the history of working with me. So again, my advice to you is to understand your expenses, understand your incomes, and then of course build a team around you to cover anything that comes up and save all the money you can in order to be able to do that and plan for the future. And of course have a mindset of trying to buy more property as you go, because the more property you have, the more doors you have, the more income you have, and of course your systems become better as you go. So that's my current plan. That's the plan I've seen work for my parents who own multiple properties in Philadelphia, and it's worked well for them. I hope this video has been helpful for you. I hope that you now have a new perspective on real estate investing, that you're not too afraid to at least go take the next step of researching and trying to get a better understanding of the different expenses and different approaches to saving, and of course dealing with anything that comes up and building wealth through real estate over the long term. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a big favor, like it, subscribe to the channel, share with a friend, and of course comment your thoughts below. If you have anything that you would like me to cover, or if you have anything that you disagree with that I said, I would love to hear from you. That's it for now. I'm Lincoln with BoAcademy.org. Thank you again and have a great day.